The archive was older than the city built around it, older than the council that governed the sector, older even than the language used to catalogue its contents. It rested beneath layers of alloy and stone, sealed away after the last expansion war, when humanity and its allies believed that nothing dangerous could remain undiscovered. Inside the central vault lay 10,000 tablets, each carved from materials no modern scanner could identify, some crystalline, some metallic, some appearing almost organic. Every known civilization that had encountered them had tried to read them, translate them, decode them, and every attempt had failed. Symbols shifted when observed, scripts rearranged themselves, meanings dissolved into noise, and after centuries of study, the archive was officially declared unreadable. The tablets were catalogued, numbered, and forgotten. They became a curiosity for historians and a footnote in academic arguments about lost cultures and cosmic coincidences. No one considered them urgent, because urgency required comprehension, and comprehension was impossible. That changed the day the human delegation arrived. They were late, unannounced, and noticeably unconcerned with the prestige of the archive. Where others approached the vault with reverence, the human walked in with the posture of someone entering a storage room. His name was Elias Ward, a linguistic analyst by title, though those who had worked with him knew that description was dangerously incomplete. The council watched from the observation tier as Elias stood before the first tablet. No scanners were activated, no translation matrices engaged. He simply looked. For a long moment, the chamber was silent, except for the hum of containment fields. Then Elias exhaled, a slow, controlled breath that carried more weight than any alarm. "These are our warnings," he said quietly. The chamber erupted into confusion. Council members demanded clarification, archivists protested, scholars accused him of arrogance or theatricality. But Elias did not argue. He moved to the next tablet, then the next, his expression growing heavier with each step. "These are not records," he continued, voice steady. "They are not prayers or histories or myths. They are reminders." The head archivist demanded proof. Elias turned, eyes sharp, and asked a single question. "Did any of you notice that none of the symbols repeat the same way twice?" The archivists exchanged glances. They had noticed, of course, but dismissed it as an artifact of unreadable language. Elias shook his head slowly. "They are not changing because you cannot read them," he said. "They are changing because they are being read." Silence returned, deeper this time. The council ordered a full halt to all tablet analysis and demanded an explanation. Elias placed his hand near the surface of one tablet without touching it. "We made these," he said. "Not recently, not in this era, but in a cycle before this one. And we buried them because we hoped no one would ever need to understand them again." The council chamber filled with arguments, accusations, and disbelief. Humanity was a young species by galactic standards, violent, yes, resilient, certainly, but ancient enough to leave 10,000 warnings across the stars. That idea was absurd. Elias listened patiently until the noise burned itself out. "You are assuming linear history," he said. "You are assuming time behaves the same way for every species." He requested access to a single display, nothing more. Reluctantly, the council allowed it. Elias projected an image of a human brain scan beside a tablet symbol. The resemblance was unmistakable. "These are not words," he explained. "They are mnemonic scars. They only activate when perceived by a compatible neural structure. That is why no one else could read them." A counselor asked the question no one wanted to voice. "What are they warning about?" Elias closed his eyes briefly, then answered. "He explained that humanity had not evolved once, but many times. Across cycles of collapse and rebirth, humanity rose, spread, encountered something beyond comprehension, and failed. Each time, the survivors erased themselves from history, seeded new worlds, and started again. The tablets were the only constant, hidden where future civilizations might one day find them. Every cycle, Elias said, we get smarter, faster, more ambitious. And every cycle, we forget why we stopped last time. The tablets were not meant to be read casually. They were meant to be recognized. A trigger for memory buried deep in human cognition, passed not through culture, but through instinct. One counselor asked why Elias remembered when no other human had reacted. Elias answered honestly, because I was trained to look. He described a classified human program dedicated to anomaly intuition. Analysts taught not to decode, but to feel patterns, to recognize danger without understanding it. Elias had seen the tablets and felt the echo of something ancient and terrified. The warnings say the same thing in 10,000 variations, he said. Do not reach beyond this threshold. Do not wake what waits in the dark between cause and effect. The chamber lights dimmed as power fluctuated unexpectedly. Sensors reported brief distortions across local spacetime. Elias looked back at the tablets, his voice dropping. We are already too late. Emergency sessions followed. The archive was sealed, fleets were placed on standby, and every human record was scrutinized for corroboration. Fragments surfaced, myths, unexplained gaps in archaeological timelines, technologies rediscovered rather than invented. The pattern became undeniable. Humanity had been here before, and each time something had followed. Elias explained that the warnings were not about a weapon or an enemy in the traditional sense. They described an observer, a presence that existed between moments, feeding on causality itself. Every sufficiently advanced civilization eventually learned to manipulate reality too precisely, tearing small holes in probability. Those holes attracted attention. It does not invade, Elias said. It responds. It corrects excess. The tablets recorded what happened the last time humanity pushed too far. Stars that aged in seconds, civilizations erased without violence, entire histories collapsing into impossibility. Not destruction, but correction, as if the universe itself rejected complexity beyond a certain point. The Council demanded to know why the tablets were unreadable, even to humans. Elias answered that they were not meant to be understood fully. Understanding led to replication, replication led to curiosity, and curiosity led to extinction. They are warnings that resist comprehension, he said. So we cannot outthink them. As if in response, one tablet began to fracture, not physically but conceptually. Sensors failed to describe it. Language collapsed around it. Elias shouted for containment, but the damage was done. A ripple passed through the archive. For a fraction of a second, everyone present experienced a memory that was not theirs. A dying sun, a silent scream, a decision to forget. When the ripple faded, Elias was on his knees, trembling. They noticed, he whispered. Evacuation protocols were initiated. The archive was no longer a historical site, it was a beacon. Humanity faced a decision it had faced before, though no one alive remembered choosing it. Elias addressed the council one final time. We cannot fight it, he said. We cannot hide from it forever. All we can do is choose how much of ourselves survives. The tablets described a single successful outcome across all cycles. A controlled collapse. Humanity deliberately limiting its own advancement, fragmenting its knowledge, seeding primitive worlds, and erasing records. Not surrender, but strategic forgetting. The Council asked if there was another way. Elias hesitated, then answered, "There is always another way. And it always ends worse." The ripple returned, stronger this time. Stars flickered in distant sectors. Causality strained. Elias placed his hand on the central tablet at last. For the first time, the symbols stopped shifting. They aligned, briefly readable. The final warning was simple. Not in words, but in feeling. Survive by being less. The decision was made. History would fracture. The archive would remain, sealed and unreadable once more. Humanity would scatter, forget, and begin again. Elias volunteered to stay behind, to ensure the reset completed, to become part of the warning himself. As the chamber sealed, he looked at the tablets one last time. They were quiet now, dormant, patient, waiting for the next cycle. Somewhere in the future, another archive would be found. Another council would argue. Another human would look once and understand. And the warnings would speak again. Not in words, but in memory. Elias Ward did not die when the archive sealed. Death was too simple a concept for what followed. Instead, he became static within the system, a fixed point embedded in a place designed to forget itself. Time outside, the archive resumed its fractured march. Civilizations rose, borders shifted, stars were named and renamed. Inside, Elias remained, suspended between moments where thought moved slower than erosion. The tablets no longer spoke in symbols. They spoke in sensation. Pressure behind the eyes, the echo of choices never made, the weight of survival purchased with ignorance. Elias understood now why the warnings were unreadable. Language was a tool of expansion. Understanding was an invitation. The warnings did not want to be solved, they wanted to be obeyed. He felt the observer more clearly here. Not as a presence, but as an absence shaped like intention. A vast corrective function woven into reality itself. It did not hate, did not judge, did not fear. It balanced. Each time a civilization bent causality too far, it responded. Not with malice, but with inevitability. Elias realized that humanity had named it many things across cycles. God, extinction, fate, entropy, silence. All were shadows of the same truth. The archive was not a shield. It was a pause, a breath held long enough for the universe to look away. Elias became the anchor for that pause. His consciousness stretched thin, distributed across the containment fields. He no longer remembered his face, his childhood, or the sound of his own voice. But he remembered the choice. And that was enough. Outside, humanity forgot as planned. Technologies regressed into superstition. Maps lost their edges. Stories replaced records. And ambition learned to crawl again before it learned to run. Occasionally, someone came close. A scientist who noticed impossible gaps. A philosopher who sensed something missing in cause and effect. An explorer who stared too long into regions where physics felt brittle. When that happened, the tablets stirred. Not to explain, but to unsettle. Elias felt each of them like distant echoes. Potential readers, potential rememberers. The archive responded automatically. Symbols shifting, meanings dissolving, comprehension sliding away just before clarity could form. This was the true function of the warnings. Not to tell the future, but to interrupt it. Cycles passed, though Elias could no longer count them. He felt the observer recede slightly, attention drifting elsewhere as the universe stabilized. Balance restored, excess corrected without catastrophe. Yet Elias knew it would return. It always did. Somewhere, sometime, humanity would again reach too far. Curiosity would sharpen, tools would refine, probability would be pierced once more. When that moment came, the archive would awaken fully. Not as a relic, but as a reflex. Elias wondered if, in some distant cycle, humanity might finally choose differently. Not by forgetting, but by accepting limits willingly. By learning that survival did not require dominance. That existence did not demand mastery over every mechanism of reality. The tablets did not answer such thoughts. They never had. They were not hopeful, not despairing. They were simply patient. As the next cycle approached its threshold, Elias felt the familiar tension return. A tightening of causality. A shimmer at the edge of perception. The observer turning its attention back toward the noise. He braced himself, ready to become the warning again. Ready to let memory burn and symbols shift and comprehension fail. Because somewhere, in some future chamber, a human would walk in late, unannounced, look once at 10,000 unreadable tablets, and say the words that always mattered. These are our warnings, and the universe, for a little while longer, would listen.